There are moments in life when it feels like the weight of the world is pressing down on you. You wake up in the morning, and before you even step out of bed, your mind is already racing. You think about everything that needs to be done, the challenges ahead, the problems that seem to have no solution. It's easy to feel like you're stuck, like this pressure will never lift, and like nothing is ever going to change. But what if I told you that what you're feeling today is not going to last forever? What if I told you that the heaviness you're experiencing is not the end of your story, but only a chapter? So often people get caught in the mindset that what they're facing now will always be the way things are. They allow themselves to be defined by the weight of their circumstances, believing that the struggle they are going through is their new norm. This is exactly how the enemy wants you to think. He wants you to believe that the current difficulty is all there is, that things will never improve, and that you are going to have to carry this burden for the rest of your life. But that is a lie. What you are dealing with is only temporary. Just as the seasons change, just as night turns into day, there is a shift coming in your life. Think about the times in your past when you felt overwhelmed. There were situations that looked impossible, things you never thought you'd get through. But here you are today, still standing, still moving forward. What once seemed like an unmovable obstacle is now just a memory. That alone is proof that you are stronger than you think, and that nothing you go through is meant to last forever. Look at the natural world. A storm may rage through the night, the winds may blow, the rain may pour, but no storm lasts forever. Eventually the clouds break, the sun comes out, and the sky's clear. The same is true for what you're facing. It may feel intense right now. You may not see a way out, but that doesn't mean a shift isn't already in motion. What many don't realize is that every difficult situation carries within it the seed of change. Just because you can't see the solution doesn't mean it isn't there. Just because you don't feel relief yet doesn't mean it isn't on its way. The truth is, there are things happening behind the scenes that you don't even know about. Doors are opening that you haven't walked through yet. Answers are forming that you haven't heard yet. Help is coming that you haven't seen yet. One of the biggest mistakes people make is allowing their emotions in the moment to convince them that this feeling is permanent. They get discouraged, they feel overwhelmed, and they allow the weight of their situation to take root in their heart. But the reality is, every difficult moment has an expiration date. Just like no winter lasts forever, no struggle lasts indefinitely. You may be in a place where you're wondering when things will change. You may feel exhausted, tired of carrying the same weight, tired of facing the same challenges. But this is not where your story ends. There is more ahead for you. There are brighter days in your future. There are victories waiting to unfold. Think about a mother in labor. The pain is real, the pressure is intense, and in the moment it may feel like it will never end. But the reason she endures it is because she knows that something beautiful is on the other side. She doesn't focus on the discomfort, she focuses on the new life that is about to come forth. The same is true for you. What you are going through is not for nothing. It is leading somewhere. It is shaping you, strengthening you, preparing you for what's next. The difficulty may seem overwhelming, but it is not the final chapter. There is something greater beyond this moment, something far better than you can imagine. So don't let the weight of what you're facing convince you that things will never change. Don't allow yourself to get stuck in the mindset that this is the way it will always be. There is a shift coming. There is a breakthrough on the horizon. What looks like an impossible situation today will soon be a testimony of how you made it through. You have already overcome so much in your life. This moment is no different. Just as you've come through hard times before, just as you've seen things turn around in ways you never expected, you will see it happen again. This is not your final destination. What you're facing is not the end. It's only a moment in time, and moments always pass. No matter how difficult things may seem, hold on to hope. Know that something greater is ahead. You may not see it yet, you may not feel it yet, but it is already on its way. Keep moving forward, keep trusting, and know that what you're experiencing right now is not going to last forever. Your best days are still ahead. There are moments when things don't go as planned, when obstacles seem to rise out of nowhere, and when everything you thought was secure suddenly feels unstable. It's easy to wonder why these things happen, why doors close, why setbacks seem to come at the most inconvenient times. In those moments, frustration can creep in. It may feel like everything is working against you, like every step forward is met with resistance, and like no matter how hard you try, you can't seem to get ahead. What many people don't realize is that what looks like a roadblock is often something much bigger at work. It's easy to look at challenges and see them as unnecessary difficulties, interruptions to progress, or proof that things aren't working out. But what if those very challenges were actually part of a bigger picture? What if what seems like opposition is actually a necessary step towards something greater? So often when a door closes, it's because something better is being prepared. When a plan falls apart, it may actually be making space for something much greater to come together. But in the moment, it doesn't always feel that way. The natural reaction is to feel discouraged, to question why things didn't work out, and to wonder what could have been done differently. It's easy to mistake an important transition for a failure, to assume that what didn't work out means you've lost, rather than realizing it means you are being positioned for something better. Throughout history, some of the greatest breakthroughs came out of the most unexpected places. Many who thought they were facing their greatest disappointment later realized they were actually stepping into something they never could have imagined. What looked like a loss was really a shift. What seemed like an end was actually a beginning. Think about moments in your own life when something didn't go as planned. Maybe you didn't get the opportunity you were hoping for, or a relationship didn't work out the way you expected. At the time, it felt like a setback. It may have been frustrating, disappointing, even painful. But looking back, you can see how things worked out in ways you didn't anticipate. You can see that if things had gone the way you wanted, you wouldn't be where you are now. The very thing that seemed to be working against you was actually working for you. The key is not to let temporary circumstances determine long-term thinking. It's easy to look at a challenge and assume it's a sign that things aren't meant to be. But often, what looks like a closed door is actually a sign that something greater is coming. There are things being arranged behind the scenes, shifts taking place that you can't see yet. It's important to resist the urge to get discouraged in the middle of a difficult season. There will be moments when it feels like nothing is working out, when things seem to be getting worse instead of better. But that's often the moment right before things begin to change. Just because you can't see what's happening doesn't mean progress isn't being made. Sometimes the greatest breakthroughs come after seasons of the most intense pressure. Consider a construction site. Before anything new can be built, there has to be a process of clearing out the old. The ground has to be prepared. Foundations need to be laid. And sometimes what was once standing needs to be removed. To someone passing by, it may look like a mess. It may look like nothing but destruction, piles of rubble, unfinished work. But what they don't see is the blueprint. They don't see the plan that's already in place, the structure that's being built, or the transformation that's coming. That's what happens in life. There are times when things feel like they're being torn down, when situations feel chaotic, and when the path forward seems unclear. But that doesn't mean progress isn't happening. It doesn't mean the blueprint isn't in place. It simply means there is a process happening that is bigger than what can be seen in the moment. If you find yourself in a season where things aren't making sense, where it feels like everything is shifting, don't be discouraged. Don't let temporary frustration cause you to lose sight of the bigger picture. There are things happening that you don't see yet. There are pieces coming together that you haven't been shown yet. What may seem like a delay is often just preparation. Sometimes the most difficult moments are the ones that lead to the greatest transformations. What looks like an obstacle is often a doorway in disguise. What seems like a step backward is often a setup for something even greater. If you can hold on through the uncertain moments, if you can trust even when you don't understand, you will see things shift in ways you never expected. Looking back, the moments that seemed the hardest will often be the very ones that led to the greatest blessings. The things that once felt overwhelming will one day make sense. The situations that seemed unfair will be revealed as the very things that position you for something better. Nothing is wasted. Even the challenges, even the delays, even the moments of uncertainty are all leading somewhere. So rather than looking at difficulties as proof that things aren't working, see them as signs that something greater is in progress. What looks like an interruption may actually be an important step forward. What seems like resistance may actually be realignment. The bigger picture is still unfolding, and what is ahead is far greater than anything that has been left behind. Life has a way of presenting moments that feel overwhelming. Circumstances arise that seem beyond your control, situations that push you to your limits, challenges that test your patience, your strength, and your faith. It's during these times that doubt tries to creep in, whispering thoughts of uncertainty, making you question whether things will ever change. When everything around you feels chaotic, it's easy to believe that you've been forgotten, that your prayers are unheard, that nothing is working in your favor. But just because things seem uncertain doesn't mean that a plan isn't already in motion. There is always more happening than what can be seen in the moment. Too often, people mistake difficulty for abandonment, assuming that because things are hard, nothing good can come from it. But the most powerful transformations take place in the moments that seem the darkest. When it feels like everything is uncertain, when nothing makes sense, that is often the place where the most unexpected changes begin to happen. Think about the way seeds grow. Before a sprout appears, the seed must first be placed in the ground. It is buried beneath the soil, unseen, surrounded by darkness. To an outside observer, it might seem like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, something incredible is taking place. The process of transformation has already begun. The roots are taking hold. The foundation is being established. And in time, what was once hidden will begin to emerge. The same is true for moments in life that feel overwhelming. It's easy to focus on what isn't working, to dwell on the discomfort of the moment, to feel trapped by the weight of uncertainty. But just because the process is unseen doesn't mean it isn't happening. When things feel the most difficult, that is often the point when unseen shifts are taking place. What may seem like chaos is actually a process of rearrangement, where pieces are moving, things are aligning, and what once seemed impossible is being made possible. There are countless stories of individuals who faced seemingly insurmountable obstacles, who encountered unexpected challenges, who went through situations that felt like setbacks. But in time, what once seemed like an impossible burden became the very thing that led to something greater. What looked like defeat was actually preparation for something better. Think about the process of refining gold. The metal is placed into fire, subjected to extreme heat. In that moment, it looks like it is being destroyed. The flames surround it, the pressure increases, and the gold begins to melt. But what is actually happening is a process of purification. The impurities are being removed, and the gold is becoming stronger, purer, more valuable. Without the fire, the refinement wouldn't happen. Without the heat, the imperfections would remain. The very thing that seemed destructive was actually the process that made it better. It's important to understand that when challenges arise, they are not without purpose. It may not be clear in the moment, it may not make sense right away, but just because something is difficult doesn't mean it isn't leading somewhere. The times of uncertainty, the moments of discomfort, the seasons of struggle are often the very places where the most powerful changes take place. Consider how a diamond is formed. It doesn't start out looking beautiful. It begins as carbon, something ordinary, something common. But when it is placed under extreme pressure, when it is subjected to conditions that seem unbearable, it is transformed. What was once unremarkable becomes something valuable, something rare, something brilliant. The process isn't easy, but without it, the diamond would never take shape. Life works the same way. There will be moments of pressure, times when the weight of circumstances feels like too much to bear. But just because something is difficult doesn't mean it is without purpose. The pressure isn't meant to destroy, it's meant to transform. The very thing that feels overwhelming today may be the thing that leads to something greater tomorrow. Looking back, some of the most unexpected blessings often come from the most difficult situations. The closed doors, the delays, the moments of frustration. They are not the end of the story. They are part of a bigger process, one that is still unfolding, one that is leading to something greater. It's easy to focus on what is happening in the moment, to become discouraged when things don't go as planned, to wonder why certain challenges arise. But just because things don't happen the way they were expected doesn't mean they aren't happening the way they are meant to. There is something powerful about knowing that difficulties are not without purpose. The struggle is not the final destination. It is part of the journey, part of the process, part of the transformation. Every challenge carries within it the possibility of something greater. Every difficulty is shaping something unseen. And when the time is right, what was once hidden will be revealed. What once seemed overwhelming will become a testimony of perseverance. What once felt like a burden will be recognized as the very thing that led to something better. It is important to hold on to hope, even in the moments that seem the hardest. Just because the outcome isn't visible yet doesn't mean it isn't on the way. Just because the process is difficult doesn't mean it isn't leading somewhere. The unseen shifts are already happening, and in time, what was once uncertain will become clear. What was once overwhelming will be understood, and what once felt like too much to handle will become a story of strength, transformation, and victory. There are moments in life when everything seems to be working against you. No matter how hard you try, no matter how much effort you put in, it feels like nothing is changing. The weight of responsibilities, the pressure of expectations, the uncertainty of the future, it can all become overwhelming. During these times, it's easy to feel drained, exhausted, as if you have nothing left to give. You wonder if things will ever get better, if the situation will ever turn around, if there is anything ahead that will make all the struggles worthwhile. But what if the very place you are in right now is not a sign of defeat, but rather a sign of preparation? What if the exhaustion, the frustration, the setbacks are not meant to break you, but to build you into something stronger? It's easy to look at difficulties and assume they are obstacles, roadblocks standing in the way of progress. But more often than not, they are actually indicators that something greater is on the way. Think about the process of training for a marathon. A runner doesn't wake up one day and suddenly have the endurance to run 26 miles. It takes time, discipline, and a willingness to push through discomfort. There are days when the training feels impossible, when exhaustion sets in, when the muscles ache and the body begs for rest. But the runner keeps going, not because the pain is enjoyable, but because they know it is strengthening them for something greater. Every difficult run, every moment of exhaustion, every struggle along the way is actually preparing them for the finish line. Life works the same way. The struggles you face are not without purpose. They are shaping you, strengthening you, preparing you for what's ahead. The moments that feel the hardest are often the ones that develop the greatest resilience. The times when you feel like giving up are the very moments when the most growth is taking place. It may not be visible right now. It may not make sense in the moment, but that doesn't mean the process isn't working. Consider how a tree grows. When a storm comes, the wind beats against it, the rain pounds the leaves, and the roots are shaken. From the outside, it might seem as though the storm is damaging the tree, as if it is too much for it to withstand. But beneath the surface, something else is happening. The roots are digging deeper, stretching further into the soil, becoming stronger than before. The very thing that seemed to be working against the tree is actually helping it to grow. Without the storm, the roots would remain shallow. Without the challenge, the foundation would not become stronger. The same is true for the challenges in life. The difficulties you face are not pointless. They are not just random hardships designed to wear you down. They are refining you, deepening your strength, preparing you for the opportunities ahead. Without them, growth would be limited. Without them, resilience would not be developed. The very struggles that seem overwhelming now are the ones that will give you the strength to handle what is coming next. Think about a musician practicing for a concert. They don't simply walk onto the stage without preparation. They spend hours rehearsing, repeating the same notes, going over the same passages again and again. Their fingers may cramp, their mind may grow tired, but they don't stop. They keep practicing not because it's easy, but because they know the preparation is necessary. When the day of the performance arrives, they are ready, not because it was effortless, but because they endured the process. Life has a way of placing people in situations that require endurance. There are moments when it feels like too much, when it seems like the struggle will never end, but those moments are not a sign of failure. They are a sign of growth. They are part of a process that is leading somewhere greater. Just because something is difficult doesn't mean it isn't working for your benefit. Just because it feels overwhelming doesn't mean it isn't producing something valuable. Think about a butterfly emerging from its cocoon. If you were to watch the process, it might seem cruel. The struggle is intense, the effort is exhausting, and the butterfly fights to break free. But if someone were to step in and try to help, if they were to cut the cocoon open too soon, the butterfly would never develop the strength it needs to fly. The struggle is not just necessary, it is what gives the butterfly the ability to soar. Without it, the wings would be too weak, the muscles too underdeveloped. The very thing that seems like an obstacle is actually the process that makes transformation possible. The same is true for you. The struggles you are facing now are not meant to destroy you. They are meant to strengthen you. They are shaping you into someone who is ready for greater things. They are refining your character, deepening your wisdom, increasing your resilience. Without them, you wouldn't be prepared for what is coming next. There will be moments when you question whether you have the strength to keep going. There will be times when you wonder if the effort is worth it. But if you could see what is ahead, if you could glimpse what is being prepared, you would realize that every challenge is leading to something greater. The pressure, the resistance, the obstacles, they are not stopping you. They are equipping you. Looking back, the moments that felt the hardest will be the ones that produce the most growth. The situations that seemed impossible will be the ones that strengthen you the most. Nothing is wasted. Every difficulty is part of the process. Every challenge is shaping something unseen. And when the time is right, the transformation will be revealed. The struggle will not have been in vain. The effort will not have been wasted. What once felt like an overwhelming burden will become the very thing that prepared you for what is ahead. So keep going. Keep pressing forward. The process is working, even if you can't see it yet. And when the time comes, you will realize that the very thing that once felt like too much to bear was actually what gave you the strength to step into something greater. Life has a way of presenting situations that feel overwhelming. Moments where the weight of uncertainty presses in, and times when it seems like no matter how much effort is put in, nothing is changing. It's in these moments that discouragement can set in. You may look around and feel as though others are moving forward while you remain stuck. You may wonder why the breakthrough hasn't come yet, why things seem delayed, or why progress feels slow. It's easy to grow weary when things don't happen in the way or the timing you expected. But just because you don't see the results yet doesn't mean nothing is happening. What looks like a delay is often divine preparation. What seems like a waiting period is actually a time of development. There are things being worked out behind the scenes, things coming together in ways you can't yet perceive. The process may not always be visible, but that doesn't mean it isn't taking place. Consider the way a tree grows. When you plant a seed, you don't see immediate results. There is no instant transformation. Days, weeks, even months may pass without any visible change, but beneath the surface, something is happening. The roots are stretching deeper into the soil, securing a foundation that will sustain the tree as it grows. Without that root system, the tree wouldn't survive when storms come. It wouldn't be able to stand strong when the winds blow. What looked like nothing happening was actually the most important stage of development. The same is true in life. The times when it seems like progress is slow, when it feels like you are waiting with no end in sight, those are the times when something deeper is taking place. Strength is being built, endurance is being developed, lessons are being learned that will be essential for what's ahead. It's easy to want immediate results, to desire a breakthrough without the process that precedes it. But lasting success, real transformation, doesn't happen overnight. There is always a period of preparation, a time of refining, a season of growth that must take place before the breakthrough comes. If something is built too quickly without the proper foundation, it won't last when pressure comes. But when something is developed over time, when it is strengthened through challenges, it has the ability to endure. Think about a potter working with clay. When shaping a vessel, the potter doesn't rush the process. The clay must be molded, pressed, shaped, and sometimes even broken down and reshaped to get it just right. If the clay is put into the fire too soon, before it has been properly prepared, it will crack under the heat. But if it has been shaped correctly, if the process has been followed, then when the fire comes, it will not only endure, it will be strengthened. So often the challenges faced in life are not setbacks, but setups. They are not obstacles meant to stop progress, but rather opportunities for development. It may not always be clear in the moment, but every difficulty carries within it the potential for growth. Every delay is an opportunity to build something stronger, something more resilient, something that will last. Think about an athlete training for competition. They don't simply show up on the day of the event and expect to win. They go through months, sometimes years of preparation. They endure training sessions that push them to their limits, moments of exhaustion where they wonder if they can keep going. But they don't stop because they know that the preparation is necessary. When the day of competition comes, they are ready, not because it was easy, but because they endured the process. Life has a way of placing people in seasons that require patience. There will be times when it feels like nothing is happening, when progress seems slow, when doors don't seem to be opening. But just because things aren't happening on your timeline doesn't mean they aren't happening. The process is still unfolding. The foundation is still being built. And when the time is right, what has been prepared in the unseen will become visible. Think about how the night gives way to morning. There is no sudden switch from darkness to daylight. It happens gradually. The first hints of light begin to appear on the horizon. Soft at first, barely noticeable. Then, little by little, the sky begins to brighten. Before long, the darkness fades completely, replaced by the full brilliance of day. The transition isn't instant, but it is certain. No matter how long the night seems, the morning always comes. In the same way, change is often happening even when it isn't immediately obvious. The things you've been waiting for, the opportunities you've been hoping for, the breakthroughs you've been praying for, they are in motion, even if you can't see them yet. Just because you don't have all the answers now doesn't mean the solution isn't on the way. Just because you don't see the full picture yet doesn't mean it isn't being put together. Looking back, some of the most unexpected blessings in life often come from seasons of waiting. The times when things seemed uncertain, when nothing appeared to be working out, were actually the very seasons that led to something greater. The waiting wasn't wasted. The process wasn't in vain. What seemed like a delay was actually perfect timing. So rather than becoming discouraged by what seems like a slow process, embrace it. Recognize that even in the waiting, something important is happening. Strength is being built, wisdom is being gained, preparation is taking place, and when the right moment arrives, everything will come together in ways greater than you could have imagined. The things that once felt delayed will be seen as perfectly timed. The challenges that once felt overwhelming will be recognized as the very things that strengthened you for what was ahead. The process may not always be easy, but it is always worth it. The waiting is never wasted, and what is coming is far greater than what has been left behind. There are moments in life when everything feels uncertain. You may find yourself in situations that seem beyond your control, facing challenges that appear overwhelming. In these times, it's easy to focus on the struggle, to dwell on what isn't working, to wonder if things will ever turn around. You may question whether your efforts are making any difference, whether the difficulties will ever come to an end, whether there is truly something greater ahead. But just because things feel difficult now doesn't mean they will always be this way. Just because the situation looks impossible doesn't mean that change isn't coming. Sometimes what feels like an ending is actually the beginning of something new. What seems like a breakdown is often the setup for a breakthrough. Consider how storms work. When a storm rolls in, the sky's dark and the wind picks up and the rain pours down. In the moment, it can feel chaotic. The thunder roars, the lightning flashes, and everything seems unsettled. But no storm lasts forever. Eventually, the clouds break, the rain stops, and the sun shines again. In fact, after the storm, the air is often fresher, the skies clearer, the earth renewed. What seemed disruptive actually brought change that was needed. Life works the same way. There will be times when everything seems stormy, when challenges arise unexpectedly, when uncertainty feels overwhelming. But those moments are not permanent. The difficulties you face today are not the final chapter. Just because things are hard now doesn't mean they will always be this way. Think about the way seasons change. Winter can feel long, cold, and unending. Everything looks barren, lifeless, frozen in place. But beneath the surface, something is happening. The trees may appear dead, but they are simply conserving energy. The flowers may not be blooming yet, but their roots are still growing. Then, when the time is right, spring arrives. The trees bud, the flowers bloom, the world comes alive again. The barrenness of winter was not the end of the story. It was simply a necessary season before something new could emerge. The same is true for the challenges you face. Just because something looks lifeless now doesn't mean growth isn't taking place. Just because things seem stuck doesn't mean change isn't happening. Sometimes the greatest transformations take place in the moments when it seems like nothing is moving. The process may not be visible, but that doesn't mean it isn't unfolding. Think about a caterpillar before it becomes a butterfly. It goes through a stage where it is completely enclosed, hidden away, seemingly inactive. But during that time, an incredible transformation is taking place. It is being reshaped, reformed, prepared for something new. If you were to look at the cocoon in the middle of the process, you might think nothing was happening. But in reality, everything is happening. Then at the right moment, the butterfly emerges completely different from what it once was, fully formed, ready to fly. Life often works the same way. There are times when you feel stuck, when you wonder if anything is changing, when you question whether things will ever improve. But just because you can't see the transformation yet doesn't mean it isn't taking place. What feels like a waiting period is actually a time of preparation. What seems like an ending is often the setup for a new beginning. Think about the way a farmer plants seeds. After placing them in the soil, there is a period where nothing seems to happen. The ground looks the same, the field appears unchanged, but beneath the surface, the seeds are taking root. The process has begun, even though it isn't visible yet. Then, at the right time, the sprouts begin to emerge. What was once hidden beneath the soil breaks through into the open. What seemed like inactivity was actually the most important stage of growth. The same is true for you. There may be things you've been working toward, goals you've been pursuing, dreams you've been holding on to. And right now, it may feel like nothing is happening. It may seem like the progress is slow, like the doors aren't opening, like the changes you need aren't coming. But just because you don't see it yet doesn't mean it isn't on the way. Looking back, some of the greatest transformations in life often come after the most difficult seasons. The moments that seemed the hardest, the times when everything felt uncertain, were actually the places where the biggest shifts were taking place. What seemed like a setback was actually a setup. What felt like an obstacle was actually an opportunity in disguise. The delays, the difficulties, the challenges, they were all part of a bigger process. There is always more happening than what can be seen in the moment. Just because things look one way now doesn't mean they will stay that way. Just because today feels overwhelming doesn't mean tomorrow won't bring change. The process is still unfolding. The transformation is still taking place, and the best is yet to come. Consider how night turns into day. The darkest hours come just before the morning. In those final moments of night, when everything seems the quietest, when the world is still and the sky remains dark, it can feel like the light will never return. But then, little by little, the sky begins to change. The first hints of dawn appear, and before long, the sun rises again. The darkness was never permanent. It was simply part of the transition. The same is true for the challenges you face. The difficulties may feel heavy now, but they are not forever. The struggles may seem overwhelming, but they are not the end of the story. Just because things look one way today doesn't mean they won't change tomorrow. The transformation is still in progress. The process is still moving forward. And at the right time, everything will come together in a way that is greater than you could have imagined. So hold on, keep pressing forward. Just because you can't see the full picture yet doesn't mean it isn't being put together. Just because the path isn't clear yet doesn't mean it isn't leading somewhere. The story isn't over, the process isn't finished, and the best is still ahead. The difficulties you face today are not permanent. The challenges you encounter are not without purpose. And when the time is right, everything will come together in a way that is better than you ever expected. Life has a way of presenting challenges that seem overwhelming. There are moments when the weight of stress, uncertainty, and difficulties press in, making it easy to wonder if things will ever change. But no matter how tough the season, no matter how long the struggle, this is not the end of the story. What feels like a setback is often a setup for something greater. What seems like a delay is actually divine preparation. And what appears to be stress and struggle today is on its way to becoming a testimony of breakthrough and blessing. Just like a tree takes root before it bears fruit, just like a storm clears the way for new growth, just like a caterpillar goes through transformation before it emerges as a butterfly, your challenges are leading to something greater. The waiting is not wasted. The trials are not in vain. Every difficulty, every delay, every disappointment is working together to build something stronger within you. There will be moments when progress seems slow, when doors don't seem to open, when the breakthrough feels out of reach. But just because you don't see change yet doesn't mean it isn't coming. The process is unfolding even in the unseen. The transformation is taking place even when it isn't obvious. And when the time is right, what was once a source of stress will become a testimony of blessing. So don't give up. Don't let the weight of today's struggles make you lose sight of the greater purpose ahead. Just because things are hard now doesn't mean they will always be this way. Just because the night feels long doesn't mean the morning isn't coming. The story isn't over, the process isn't finished, and the best is still ahead. Hold on, keep believing, and stay the course. What's coming is greater than what has been. The breakthrough is closer than you think. And when everything comes together, you will look back and realize that every challenge, every trial, and every moment of stress was simply the foundation for something far greater than you could have ever imagined.